So I am currently in the middle of our move. I am at my parents' place and I'm editing this video that I filmed a month or so ago. I had filmed a whole intro explaining Doublecloth, and for whatever reason, that video is gone. I think that I accidentally deleted it. I don't know. So I don't remember what I talked about, but I'm pretty sure I just explained that I was doing Doublecloth. I was originally going to do the Hopsack and Doublecloth videos together, but there's just too much on Doublecloth. It's a lot more. And so I ended up editing it separately, and that's what this video is going to be about. I guess to kind of give a quick overview, I have done Doublecloth quite often at SCAD. We had a whole section on it, and I love it. I think this is one of my favorite ways of weaving. Doublecloth is essentially when you weave two cloths simultaneously. You have a top cloth and a bottom cloth. You can do more than Doublecloth. You could weave 3 at a time, or I mean, if you had enough heddles, you could do 6 at a time. For an 8-shaft loom, you could do typically up to 3. Because I was working on just the 4 shafts of my loom, I could only do 2 layers at once, and they both had to be in plain weave. So basically, I am going to work through weaving 2 different layers. There's going to be a top and a bottom, and I'll do like an orange top layer and a white bottom layer to kind of show you what I'm talking about. The issue with Doublecloth on YouTube is that it's the kind of thing that's easier to see and explain in person. And so I'm going to do my best. And I recommend watching a couple of other videos or talking to someone who's done it if you're trying to learn how to do Doublecloth, because it's just kind of hard to explain with weird camera angles. But essentially what I'm gonna start by doing is changing my tie up, and then I'm gonna just do it. So to begin, I have to fix my tie up. I'm not sure you can see me over here. So I'm going to do, I've got my normal plain weave farthest to my left, and I'm gonna leave that. And then I'm gonna do shuttle 1 up, or I'm sorry, shaft 1 up, and then shaft 3, and then I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3 up, and let's see, 1, 3, 4 up. Okay, so to begin, I'm gonna have my orange on top and my white on bottom. So if I wanted to weave orange tabby, this is my first shaft, right? My first shaft is up. I'm gonna weave thread 1 pick, and then I'm gonna raise my 3rd shaft. Right, so now I'm only using my orange, and I'm using it the same way you would with any tabby as in every other. And I can weave this just like this, however long I want. And this creates a perfectly orange top layer. Looking at the bottom, you'll see that my white warp threads are constantly on the bottom, right? They're not coming through. There's no point where I've woven these white warp threads, which means that they're just hanging there. We just have loose threads. Now, that might be your goal. That might be the plan, is to have like a decorative element of just an orange patch. That being said, I don't have 2 layers of cloth right now. I have 1 layer of cloth and 1 layer of hanging threads. In order to get 2 distinct layers of cloth, I'm going to begin by separating my work, weaving some single cloth plain weave to keep things organized. Okay, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to do the exact same thing to start. I'm going to weave just orange on orange. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to weave white on white, but at the bottom. So here I have, so if I want white cloth underneath my orange cloth, that means that I can't just raise a white, right? Because now my white is intermingling with my orange, and I'm not gonna have orange on top, white on bottom. So what I wanna do instead is I wanna raise the white that I need here, but I want to also raise all of the orange. So this way I'm weaving a white on white, but that orange is always above it. So now I'm gonna weave another pick of orange. Trying to not get my threads too tangled. Another pick of orange. And then I'm gonna do my next white. My loom is sticking again. So now I'm back to my first set here. So this is shaft 1 is raised. And then I go everything but shaft 4 is raised, right? And then I've got shaft 3 is raised. Trying not to crisscross. And then I've got everything but shaft 2 is raised. So what this is doing is it's creating, like I said, 2 separate cloths. So now I have a white cloth on bottom and an orange cloth on top. So every time I weave with just one up, I'm weaving just onto orange. And then every time I weave with just one down, I'm weaving onto white. And I'm going back and forth. Now, in order to create separate cloths that don't connect at the sides, I have to make sure I'm not entangling my white and my orange at the sides. I'm keeping them separate and I'm not wrapping them around each other. So just orange on orange. And then here we have just white on white. The next pick of orange, making sure to not wrap that orange around the white. And then my next pick of white. This is going to create a tube, like I said, where the edges are not connected. If I wanted to create a tube with the edges connected, I would wrap these 2 weft threads, I would wrap them around each other as I go. So, or I would just use one thread. There's a lot of different ways to do this. This is complicated. Like I said, double cloth, complicated. Where was I? Okay, so let's say I want to do this pattern, but I want the edges to be connected. What I would do is I would take and I would wrap my orange around the white. And this way when I throw my orange, my white's holding it in place. Now I can throw my white. And same deal, I'm going to wrap my orange around my white. Now my sides are connected. So here I have my orange, right? I've already woven a stripe here, so I've got orange on top for my orange stripes. I don't even have to bother weaving the bottom part because it doesn't really matter. And now I can just change my tie up a little bit so that I now have a section where it's just white on top. So whereas my orange on top is 1 and 3, my white on top is 2 and 4. So I've got 1 and 3, and I just weave some 1 and 3 plain weave here. And I've got 2 and 4, and I can just weave between the two of those and get perfectly precise stripes where my warp and my weft completely match. You're not going to get clearer stripes than that. The awesome thing about double cloth is that you can do so many different things with it. It also is one of those things I highly recommend just experimenting with, because once you figure out the system, you can really expand from there. So let's say you want to make pillows. Great. You can weave in double cloth, keep the two sides connected, and then you just have to connect bottom and top and stuff it, right? Or if you want to weave a blanket, but your loom isn't wide enough, awesome. You can make a double cloth and only connect on one side. Then you don't even have to sew the pieces together, right? You just unfold it when you take it off the loom and you have double the amount of cloth. So there are a lot of applications for double cloth, but it's also one of those things that I just feel like learning and teaching in person might be easier. So if you are interested in double cloth, explore it. It's a lot of fun. It's probably one of my favorite things to do, but I don't know that I'm competently explaining this, so apologies if it's a bit frazzled and confusing. Outside of this, so I've made some pockets, I've made some stripes. I don't know that there's anything else I'm going to experiment with double cloth today. Again, I have worked with it a lot, and so I feel like this was a good quick refresher. If I wanted to do a project, I would go more deeply into it. And again, I only have a 4-shaft pattern set up right now, so I can't do more like you can do if you do like an 8-shaft loom. You could do a twill and a tabby mix, or etc., etc. That being said, something to keep in mind with double cloth, if you're only weaving one side at a time. So for example, with these stripes, let's say I'm weaving a tapestry and I'm doing it mostly in single cloth, but I want to throw in some orange double cloth stripes. That can cause some weird tensioning, because if I'm weaving the orange more than I'm weaving the white, my orange is slowly getting pulled tighter and tighter when my white isn't. So if they're on the same warp beam and I'm weaving the orange more and more, my tensioning is going to get difficult. In that case, you can actually attach 2 separate warps, or you could even, there are some looms that have like 2 warp beams. So that's what I would recommend if you're going to get more advanced and you're going to use double cloth in that kind of scenario. I would recommend being a little bit more precise about how you're using your warp. In this scenario, I used the orange as much as I used the white because I did exact same stripes. And then in the pockets, it's not as much of an issue because, again, I am weaving both sides equally. But double cloth is an excellent place to explore using 2 warps at one time. In the other example I showed you, I had a cotton warp and a linen warp, which I warped separately and then put together, versus just doing one warp and splitting it into double cloth. I honestly think that's all I have to say about double cloth. So I think I am just going to see if I jostle any memories or if there's anything that I want to experiment with. Sometimes just taking the time to just work and get into a zone and play around really gets me thinking more creatively. So next week I'm going to be working on hand manipulation of lace and maybe some tapestry or textural elements. That's my least favorite part of weaving. Fun fact, I don't really enjoy weaving with hand manipulation. I find it tedious. So I'm gonna dive into that a little bit, but we'll see how deeply I have the patience to go. But I digress. I am just gonna start fiddling around and I will catch you in the next one.